In a small town in Bavaria, Germany, the end of an ordinary road, an unremarkable house stands. The walls are dirty white, windows cut into peeling green. But behind the locked door, lurks a terrifying and dark story. What about this substance? A girl possessed by a demon. Amelia has left home. She was born here on September 21st, 1952. Like most families living here, Amelia's parents are both Catholic. He and his 3 sisters. From an early age, I lived in a strong Catholic atmosphere. Under the influence of my eyes, I am also very devout to Catholicism. Children are extremely smart for the first time. Excellent academic performance. He has his own dream to become a teacher. However, the dream has not yet been realized. The last days of his life. But it became a nightmare. Amelia lives in a classroom in 1968. I suddenly felt dizzy. Then the whole body twitched. Passed out. Teachers and students, they rushed him to the school infirmary. It didn't take long to reach the infirmary. Alice woke up. The doctor then examined him. But no problems were found. So the teacher naturally thinks his sudden fainting is related to being too tired from studying recently. Let him go home and rest for a few days. But the night Alice came home, a very strange thing happened. That night, lying in bed, Amelia felt vaguely better, like a weight was weighing down on him. And I also remembered a chaotic figure around me. He quickly opened his eyes, want to see what's going on. But I soon realized that I was awake. But the body can't move, can't make any sound. Several minutes later, he regained control of his body. What about this time? He found himself wetting the bed at some point. And Alice didn't take it to heart. She also thinks it may be caused by physical fatigue. A few days later, well rested, Alice is back at school. Everything seems to be back to normal. August 24th, 1969. Ranked 4th second sports jerk. The Nissiers took him, went to see a neurologist. The doctor diagnosed another case of schizophrenia. This disease can cause seizures, memory loss, and the occurrence of disorders and auditory hallucinations. Ear and seizures at the same time. It can also cause Casebook syndrome. This is a kind of disease characterized by excessive religious beliefs. After diagnosis, Alice started taking epilepsy medication. Shortly thereafter, he was diagnosed with depression again. Due to the frequent occurrence of diseases, Alice is unable to live normally on campus. I had no choice but to suspend school for a year and be admitted to the hospital. His condition improved after treatment. He returned to school in 1970. Then he entered the University of Augsburg in 1973. However, over the years taken, it didn't alleviate the green line. Over time, his condition began to deteriorate. He's hearing voices, sometimes even hallucinations. He saw the face of the devil while praying. Even demons whispered in his ears, said he would go to hell, and Amelia was horrified. He began to suspect that a demon had possessed him. So he told his parents about it. At first, the Mickey couple took their daughter's words lightly. Thought it might be a disease and study pressure. Dan Mick, when the couple took their daughter to the doctor again, Alice told the doctor, "I have been possessed by the devil." Thereafter, although Alice is still taking medication, but he doesn't believe it anymore. Medication can help with your illness. Under the long-term torture of the disease, he started looking beyond drugs. They can treat themselves. As the disease gets worse, he's getting more diligent. Soon, friend, the classmates are all because of his inertia, gradually alienated him. Amidus has also become withdrawn, reluctance to communicate with people. On this day, the Michaels brought their daughter, go to church to pray as always. Just then, and something incredible happened. Time, Amelia, who was originally very devout to Catholicism, it should be the past. I started shaking after entering the church. During the period, he also used a vicious staring at the Virgin, and keep dodging the cross. Also refused to start taking seepage. At the same time, Alice. It also began to smell like a corpse. See, an old lady around said to Michelle. Ella's symptoms are reminiscent of being possessed by demons. I suggest they find a pastor to see. The Nissiers listened to the old lady. I was thinking of finding a psychic temple. Check the condition of your daughter. Peers of the same age can be found. When I first saw Alice, I was shocked. He said Alice had demons wrinkled in her body. there's nothing he can do. That's how the Michaels of the future. The only recourse is to the local priest, to request an exorcism for her daughter. But after the local priest saw Emily's symptoms, rejected their request. Because he was suspected in the Tianzu Church, spiritual possession has a strict definition. Although Ernest was interested in religious objects and the supernatural, matches the first signs of demon possession. But in exorcism, it is necessary to know all the attachments. The body phenomenon can only be carried out when it occurs. At the same time, the priest also said that performing an exorcism requires the approval of the bishop. Not to mention Egypt, Lilith's symptoms. In his opinion, it does not qualify as being possessed by demons. Therefore, the priest advised the Michelle couple to bring AI. Lilith goes to the doctor. After being rejected by the priest, Annie's illness, it started to get worse. Heavy. From the outside, he looks like the doll Annabelle. Spiritually, Emily begins to show aggression. They even exhibit strange behavior. 1974. As the condition continues to deteriorate, the behavior of being able to stand still is getting weirder. He started beating up his family and classmates. Hunger strike, sleeping on the floor. Sometimes they rip off their clothes. In a strange gesture, lie under the table. From time to time, there was a low roar in the throat. Sometimes it devours spiders in the house, coal and its own excrement, even banging your head against a wall and so on. At the same time, Heinlein begins to insult the archbishop. You change your previous pious appearance. Any sacred object comes near him, he will be very resistant. Why did a young girl become like this? Is it really an evil spirit? Looking at my daughter like this, the Michaels became increasingly convinced the daughter is possessed by a demon. So he didn't find another priest. Ernst Alter asks for help. Ernst saw Amelia. To the Michaels. Their daughter doesn't look like she has epilepsy. No symptoms of seizures were observed. So Ernst decided Annelies is possessed by demons, focusing on the local bishop. Allow exorcism. At first, the bishop did not agree, until September 1975. Entes once again to local Joseph. Bishop Stengel is willing. The bishop finally granted the request. And allow Ernst, with the wheel according to Roman I, perform an exorcism for Andrews. But the order has to be done in complete secrecy. After approval, Ernst on September 24th performed the first exorcism for Edlis. Meanwhile, the Michaels, after the exorcism began, immediately stopped all treatment. Stopped consulting a doctor. The entire treatment process relies solely on the exorcist. After several exorcisms, things seem to be getting better in Arliss. But the good times didn't last long. It won't be long before he gets sick again. And it gets worse every time. The flag is too independent. (1975 and 1976), for about 10 months. A total of 67 exorcisms were performed in Amway history. Once or twice a week, up to 4 hours each time. During the removal process, Annelies' attacks can be very powerful at times. It takes 3 people to hold down, and the whole process of exorcism have been preserved in the form of photos and audio recordings. More than 40 volumes of audio recordings and hundreds of photos. At the end of 10 months, Annelies' condition has been up and down. Sometimes good enough to go back to school, or go to church with your family to make sediment. But actually, rehearsal power is more likely than ever to get mixed up in jerks. June 30th, 1976. This is Anning's first time. Got pneumonia from sleeping on the cold ground for a long time. Also due to long-term inability to weight loss is only 30 kilograms. Even in the final ritual, Emily kept kneeling vigorously. Ask God to forgive me. And so on. Repeated kneeling also caused his kneecap to shatter. Unable to stand normally, so that every time an exorcism is performed, it needs to be supported by others to proceed normally. This day, Emily has a high fever. With the help of my mother, the ceremony was carried out according to the instructions of the priest. Due to the absence of myopia for a long time, he was frail. After the ceremony, Canitas said to the priest, I beg for forgiveness of my sins. Then I told my mother that I was so scared. July 1st at noon, 23-year-old Emily finally stopped breathing due to the torment of the devil. The 2 priests immediately informed the authorities of the situation. After the news of Annie's exorcism passed away, it caused a stir in Germany. German police immediately launched a criminal investigation. Final confirmation: the reason for Alice's death. It was nearly a year and a half of starvation during the ceremony, the resulting malnutrition, and high fever detoxification. The current survey shows that his death, it could have been avoided a week before he died. So the prosecutor asked his parents and 2 Catholic priests. Criminal proceedings were initiated, charged them with manslaughter. And due to the German trial, in the midst of a church boom, the exorcism is also approved by the bishop. After 2 years, the court just convicted the case of Ernest. March 30th, 1978. The Ellinglis exorcism was heard in a local court. Faced the accusation. 2 faced merchants also claim that 2014 is possessed by demons. To prove that what I say is true, 2 priests played their video that day. Magic time recording. Through recording, can be heard clearly the demonic message attached to Emilius. Shocking. The demon that possessed Emilius. As many as 6. These 6 demons are Satan's tricks. Tyrant lost. Adam's son should also. Judas who betrayed Jesus. Nazi harrowing Hitler. And a chicken priest, Christian. The birthdays of the 2 priests were theirs. Alice was tortured. Because he was tortured. Awake to every painful experience. He is struggling to resist these demons. The priest also said, the suffering of Alice, to save the souls of others from hell. And before he died, his soul has been liberated. Facing the defense of 2 priests, medical experts pointed out in court that he thought Alentis was due to a brain lesion. Epilepsy. Plus the fantasy. These illusions reflects the religious element of reproduction in his subconscious Suhi-cultural background. That's why Alice produces. See the face of the devil, and hear them dripping blood in their ears. April 1978, 2 years after the death of Annelies. The 2 doctors who exorcised the stars are called priests. Betrayal guilty of manslaughter. Sentenced to 6 months in prison, 3 years in prison, and impose a fine. The Michaels were found guilty, but was exempted from any punishment. After the trial, the Michel couple petitioned the authorities, allowed to exhume daughter's body, because when he died, was hastily buried in a cheap coffin. So 2 years after the burial, Alice's body was put back into a new project coffin. Afterwards, the cemetery of Annelies became a pilgrimage site for local ex-conquerors. It is also the place where priests go before exorcism. Many years later, the event was also turned into a famous horror movie, Exorcism, and released in 2005. The death of a Titus. Is it the work of a fool? Or is it the misfortune caused by the exorcism itself? Perhaps this is a test of religious belief, and the question of the limits of science. Then in the knot. The case under Amway's 4th place. Although it provided inspiration for films such as Exorcism, Cult of, it's a source of controversy between the medical and spiritual communities. But his story, it's not a story of spirituality triumphing over demons. It's about how people believe in themselves. Faith and hope. A story projected on a girl's delusion. Because of one's belief system, also plays an important role in mental illness. Especially strict religious beliefs. This upbringing starts from the moment a child is born. It would be a supernatural worldview imposed on them. A person's metaphor, it can be another person's reality. Especially in the religious world, fools and demons, it can be a person's life. Very stylish character. Plus, mental illness, those who are full of temptation and evil, will become a real torturer. So that, in the end, the church became Alice's torturer. And here's the sad part. Their parents became slow to accept him. Complicity in the painful murder process.